Hello, and welcome to another new episode of Nintendo Power Memories, the series in which I discuss a lot of the memories that I have of being a subscriber to Nintendo Power Magazine for about 6 years. And in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look through the first issue I ever received, which is the June 2003 issue of Nintendo Power. Now, in the last episode I went over this, but I got this as a subscription bonus. The Yoshi's Island Game Boy Advance Player's Guide. Honestly, this was the reason I subscribed, but I wound up really getting into the magazine. As you can see, the first issue I read it so much I just completely destroyed the binding. So basically the point of this series is I'm going to be looking back through each issue and sort of rediscovering little things about it and showing off interesting little bits of news on games that came out during the time, just sort of like a look back at the history of Nintendo, like from that point in time. Now this issue is pretty interesting because it has like a fold-out cover showcasing a whole bunch of games that came out during E3. I'll show you a separate clip of that. And this was an interesting first issue because it introduced me to E3, something that I am very familiar with now. I sit down and watch E3 every year. But this issue was sort of my introduction to what that was, and then, here we got Player's Pulse, where they'd get fan mail and sometimes answer it. A lot of really interesting letters would show up in this magazine. I think it's been around since the very first issue of Nintendo Power, if I'm not mistaken, but, I wasn't around for that long. And another thing that was always in the very start of each issue, at least as far as I can remember, they would always start with the power charts, which was this section that would talk about like the top selling games of that month and the player's choice, like top rated and top selling, as well as most wanted future releases. We got it here for Gamecube, and then Game Boy Advance on the other page. And this is the Game Watch section, where they'd sort of talk about new titles that were coming out. A lot of them not that interesting, but you'd get a few fairly interesting titles here and there, and then they'd sort of sum it all up in a list of games that were coming out, the Game Watch forecast. Just a whole bunch of sort of random stuff smashed into the beginning. And here, this is sort of the highlight of this issue. The section covering E3 2003, which, a whole bunch of games, Mario Kart Double Dash, Mario and Luigi for the Game Boy Advance. Like this whole huge lineup in titles. Killer 7, and that wouldn't come out for another couple of years. It's kind of cool to look back on all this some of this before it even came out, and a lot of these games are considered classics now. Tales of Symphonia, the Gamecube remake of Metal Gear Solid, not to mention Pikmin 2 and the Game Boy Advance version of Super Mario Bros. 3. I was super excited for that when it was first announced. We got a little strategy section covering Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell. Never really got into that, but it was interesting to read about. And every issue of Nintendo Power, I think even back when they first started, they would always come with this like fold-out poster. This one is for a Mega Man game. I'll be sure to show you zoomed-in clips of all these different segments of the magazine that I'm talking about, so you're not like completely lost. What else we got here? This is a really nostalgic issue to look through. The first issue I ever got. Wario World. I think I rented that game once. That was there was a lot of coverage of that game. Okay. What else we got here? Classified information. That was a cool section. They would show off like different cheat codes and passwords for like a whole smattering of different games. Let's see. Lost Kingdoms 2, which I've never played, but I recently found out it's from the same developers of Dark Souls from Software, so you know that's reason enough for me to maybe check it out someday. Big fan of Dark Souls. And here, this is a monthly section for a while I was subscribed to it, the Poke Center. It was a section completely devoted to Pokemon, where, you know, they'd either talk about the games, the TV series, or the trading card game, a whole bunch of different stuff. This issue talks about some stuff, some maps and strategies for Ruby and Sapphire, as well as the Pokemon that are exclusive to each version, which, you know, I still don't have either version. I wound up getting Emerald later on. That's a different story. You know, this would have been really cool, a really cool reference for if I actually had Ruby and Sapphire. And then every issue would have like this giveaway section where there would be like grand prize, second prize, third prize. Every issue would be like a different game or something as a giveaway. I think I entered for one of them. Don't remember which one it was. And then this section right here was pretty interesting, especially when I wound up really getting into RPGs, the Epic Center, where they talked about upcoming like strategy games and RPGs. This is the first I'd ever heard of Mario and Luigi, a game that wound up becoming one of my favorite Game Boy Advance games later on. Quite a lot of fun. But this will mostly be previews for RPGs, or just, I don't know, like strategies for certain RPGs. The Crossing Guardian, which is a one-page section dealing with Animal Crossing for the Gamecube. The Arena, which is challenges relating to certain games. I never really got that one. Answers 2. This was a really interesting game. Warioware Inc. Mega Micro Games. This section of this issue got me really interested in this game. Just very, very strange, unique kind of game. Very fast-paced and very addicting. Whole lot of fun to play. Oh, here we go. This is Castlevania Aria of Sorrow, and while I wasn't really interested in it at the time, later on I wound up getting into Castlevania quite a bit, and this is actually the first I ever read about it. Very cool stuff. Donkey Kong Country on the Game Boy Advance. It was originally a SNES game. This is another one where I actually got the Game Boy Advance game because I wound up reading about it in this issue, but I don't know. I didn't really care a whole lot for the Game Boy Advance version. Like, even now, I still think the Super Nintendo version I wound up playing later on was a lot better. And then in the back you'd get the review section, where you get a whole bunch of like really big reviews of major titles, and then everything else would sort of get their own like mini review. I like the way it was arranged, very easy to sort of just pick out a game and read the review. This issue's absolutely falling apart. So old. But yeah, anyway, that was the first issue of Nintendo Power I ever received through my subscription. You know, really cool looking back, sort of rediscovering a lot of the stuff in this. Looking forward to going over the rest of them. But that's it for now. If you enjoyed, be sure to subscribe, because I do update fairly often, and I plan on doing quite a bit more of this series in the near future. So, until next time.